Hey, it's Alex from BoardGameCo over here, and welcome to another Monday Kickstarter Roundup. In today's video, we're going to go over a bunch of Kickstarters, a bunch of updates, and in fact, a few not really the usual BoardGameCo kind of stuff, but two of them through viewer request and one of them from my own, just interested. I'm going to cover them anyway. And let's start with Jiangshi. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. It wouldn't be a BoardGameCo video without some degree of mispronunciation, and apparently the English language in general is off to the races today. So, Jiangshi Blood in the Banquet Hall is a RPG game, which is why it's not our usual fare over here. It's not my usual coverage, but it's an RPG game in which you are effectively fighting off zombies while serving the restaurant, doing whatever you need to do in the restaurant, making sure to accomplish the fairly difficult job of running a restaurant while making sure to fight off zombies every night. It looks interesting, looks intriguing. I'm not an RPG person, so it's not my thing. And because I'm not an RPG person, I'm not going to comment on the value either. I would have no idea where to sell this. I would have no idea how to sell this. I can tell you if you're trying to sell this in a board game arena, if you're trying to sell it on Board Game Geek, on a board game Facebook group, you're not going to get all that far, so I can't comment on the sale value if you don't like it. But hey, it's an RPG, and I had a few people interested in it, so I just figured, hell, I'll cover it. You know, whoever wants to see it, whoever likes this kind of thing, if you found out about it, great, I'm happy to help, and if not, whatever. It does sound interesting, don't get me wrong, interesting concept, just not really a board game, so not something I can overly comment on. From there, we're going to go Gangs of the Undercity, which is the other end of the spectrum. Not a board game, not an RPG, but this is a tabletop skirmish game, and that's going to be evident as you go through. It's going to look like a board game, but you'll see in a second why it's more of a tabletop skirmish game, and there's definitely overlap in those categories. I'll note Jiangshi, for instance, is something that you can't even find a listing for on Board Game Geek, perhaps on RPG Geek probably, but not Board Game Geek, versus Gangs of the Undercity you can, so it does have a little more board game element going on. I mean, ultimately, what's the real difference between, let's say, Gangs of the Undercity and The Edge Dawnfall, War Chest or whatnot, one of those games. So it definitely does have more overlap in the board game space, but it's still outside the realm of what I would consider a normal board game in terms of me knowing the value, knowing where this falls. And this is a skirmish game, cyberpunk skirmish game. The models and the miniatures do look great, so offhand, that looks totally fine. I mean, look at these guys. They look fine. I mean, they're renders. They're not actual miniatures, but they look great. It's a skirmish game. Looks interesting, looks intriguing. Again, looks fine. Where you lose me is on the pledge levels, and by lose me, I don't mean me personally. I mean my association with board games. On the pledge levels, you're starting off with $30 for the basic rules, whatever, this, that. At $65, you get a digital PDF rulebook and a bunch of miniatures. And then at $110, you get the rulebook. Or in other words, this is a real, like, a skirmish game. This is like, you know, Warhammer or whatever kind of skirmish game in which the rulebook is so big and or involved. That's literally a big chunk of the pledge level right there. So it's definitely a skirmish game. Again, overlap with board games, but a bigger, broader arena of its own or whatnot. Not necessarily as localized to a single box. Again, looks interesting, and again, I can't comment on the value proposition at all. I can't comment on whether it makes sense to get this now, get it later. I can tell you that if you tried selling this on Board Game Geek, you would probably get less than what you paid for it. And if you tried selling it elsewhere, I don't know. Which now is a good time to mention because I forgot to do it in the beginning, but if you're new to this channel and you hear me talking about selling things, I'm not talking about buying games in order to sell them. Rather, I focus on the value proposition of Kickstarter, on whether it makes sense to back it now or get it later. And part of that decision is, if I back it now, can I get my money back later if it's not something that was good for me and my collection? And or if I don't back it now, can I get it cheaper on the secondhand market or in retail? Meaning it's not about trying to make money on Kickstarter, although you're welcome to do so. Rather, trying to buy as many Kickstarters as you can without being irresponsible about how you buy things. From there, we have, and this is my own thing that I found somewhere. I saw it on some group somewhere, and it just looked interesting. I wanted to mention it, which is this is Crown's Chess Compact Portable Nesting Chess Set. Now, I like chess. Big fan of chess. Happy to play it whenever someone suggests it. I don't really suggest it myself because I'd rather play most other two-player abstracts that are more board gamery. I don't think they're necessarily better, but I think they're newer, they're fresher, they're more interesting. When I play a game like, I don't know, Targi is more interesting to me than chess because I've been playing chess my whole life. I think chess is an amazing game, but I've been playing it my whole life, and so it loses that allure. I'm sure if I played Targi for the next 14 years, I'm sure I'd be ready for whatever the next board game is at that point. So it's not that chess is bad, it's just that chess is there. It's been around, and that's kind of it. So that little, I guess, chess thing aside, I like chess, and I just thought this was cool. This is a portable chess set where all the pieces nest within each other. That's pretty cool. Look at this. You see this? Look at this picture. These pieces all nest within each other. The board rolls up inside this tube, and you can just carry it and do what you want. Am I backing this? Nope, not at all, because I barely play my own chess set, and I don't need to walk around with a chess set to wherever it is I want to go. But I just thought it was cool, and I just wanted to share it with you guys because I wanted to share something cool with you guys. That's pretty much basically it. No ulterior motive. I just thought it was cool. Anyways, from there we have Tokyo Sidekick, which unfortunately got canceled. I was going to say got sidekicked, but it got canceled. This is from Japanese. I'm going to say this wrong. Either Japanime. I don't know. It's from JG. Either way, Japanime Games, I think, I don't know, I'm getting too self-conscious here, is a company that has a bunch of games under their belt already. This is one that looked interesting. I was all prepped to cover it. I haven't done all my research on it, and then they canceled it. They are coming back, they said next month, I believe, so we'll cover it then. This is really just an update that unfortunately they didn't get the funding they wanted, they didn't get to where they wanted to be, or where they thought they needed to be, whatever. We've talked about canceled funding goals in the past, you know my views on this. I get it, I'm sympathetic, I wish them all the best, and I will definitely be covering it when it comes back. As far as what I'll say, I have no idea because I hadn't finished my research on this, so yeah. From there we have Daimyo. Daimyo is one I already covered. I did a dedicated video on that. I'll link to that down below, up above, all that stuff. Daimyo, there's no real major update here. I'm just covering it because there's 4 days left in the campaign, or 3 days by the time you're watching this, and so there's just not a lot of time left to make a decision. Overall, we're seeing $207,000 funding goal so far. We'll see where that ends up. It definitely is less than where I thought it was trending towards, so I thought it was trending closer towards, I can't remember what I said exactly, but I think I thought it was going to hit 400,000 or somewhere in that range, but it might still hit 300. It's hard to say with 4 days left. It may very well depend on what they unlock in the stretch goals, or not really stretch goals, the backer count goals in the comments down below, not comments, in the campaign page down below. And speaking of which, let's scroll down to those. So those are over here. And there's a bunch of cool things here, but unfortunately, the kind of things that they're unlocking actually make me more interested in waiting as opposed to backing now. So they already have scavenger meeples, they already have component upgrades. When I say already have, I mean when I covered the game. They added Techno Farm miniatures, they added 12 custom-shaped shadow meeples. Again, these are cool. I don't really need the meeple, the miniatures. I'm happier with the meeples. I don't need that extra. We have two alternative building boards plus action tiles. I like the variety, but again, that's a base game content. That's nothing extra. We have 16 radio tower miniatures. This is going into the miniature pledge. We have more gameplay, more custom-shaped clan tokens. Honestly, all the things that I so far like in their unlocks are things that are in the base game and not in the miniature pack. I'm not backing this as of now, and I will personally miss the double layer player boards. I want that. And interestingly enough, they're not going to, while they will sell the miniature pack later, they will not sell they said they will not sell the upgrade pack with the double layer player boards. So that seems to be the thing that's going to be harder to get than the miniatures, but I don't really care about the miniatures nearly as much as I want the double layer player boards. And for the base game itself, I'm happy to wait. Will it hit retail distribution? I don't know. It's definitely more of a risk than when I talked about it last, because the biggest question is going to be, Clash of Rage is not, which is one of their games, is not as easy to get. It's a Wonderful World is one of their games that's very easy to get. The retail distribution in the US, assuming you're a US backer or whatnot, is going to be tricky. And if you're not a US backer, which a big portion of my audience isn't, check what your retail distribution chances are, because I think for me, that's the biggest question. If I believe this was very unlikely to come to retail, then I'd be more inclined to back it. More inclined, not certain. Versus right now, I'm not willing to pay the amount extra for stuff that I mostly don't care about. I'm happy to wait. I'm happy to roll the dice, see what happens. At the end of the day, while I am interested in this game, while I am interested in Daimyo, it's not a game that I think I would really be that upset about if I never got my hands on. I want it, and reviews might change that. When it comes in, the amount of people who post pictures on Facebook or comment and leave reviews or whoever, that might change my mind. But FOMO is a thing, and FOMO won't drive all my actions. FOMO will be a factor in my decisions, but it won't make my decisions. And FOMO alone would have me backing this. Versus the rest is kind of, I'm happy to pass. And ultimately, you have to make that decision for yourself. I think it really does come down to how much do you care about the miniatures, how much do you care about the resource player boards, and how much do you care if it doesn't actually show up in whatever country you are in. Those are the questions you have to ask yourself before backing it. As of now, I think it's an okay back if you care about all those things, but if you don't care about the miniatures or the resource player boards, Just wait and see. We'll find out later. Which brings us to Beach-A-Palooza by Cryptosaic Games. Now, Cryptosaic Games, generally their games do not hold their value. Frankly, across the board, Kickstarter, retail, their games are liked. Now, DC Universe, I think, is their most popular. The DC Universe Deck Builder is, I believe, their most popular game. But overall, their games just don't seem to do a good job holding their value, neither in retail nor in Kickstarter. Again, they're good games. Nothing wrong with them. But they tend to, like, let's give an example. If you buy Blood Rage and you want to sell it, you'll get your money back for the most part. Even retail, you'll take a small hit, but you'll get a good chunk of it back. If you buy DC Deck Builder from Miniature Market or BoardGameCo, well, BoardGameCo is cheaper in terms of used games, but if you buy it from Miniature Market and you pay retail price or whatever it is, and you try to sell it later, you're lucky to get half your value back. And that's one of the more popular ones. They make a lot of games. They make Lord of the Rings. They make Street Fighter. They make a lot of card games, often in terms of deck builders, sometimes other just card games. In terms of Kickstarter, they've had Cult, they've had Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2. Those are all games that have not held their value. Beach-A-Palooza is a little different because it's one of their more typical retail games, but it's being done on Kickstarter because of COVID-19, because of the disruption to retail chains, the lack of options of being able to present your game at a convention or whatever. It has shifted it for them so that they chose to put this one out on Kickstarter instead. Now, in terms of should you back it on Kickstarter, I have a hard time believing so. Now, the good news, or depends on you define good news, the relevant part as to why it might be worth backing is, unlike most of the other card games in this space, in terms of this genre of lighter, accessible, IP-based card games, this one is Kickstarter exclusive, which is, I almost missed that when doing this campaign because I just assumed it was going to retail, like many of the other smaller Kickstarter games, smaller card games. So in terms of whether you should get it, at $30 shipping plus $13 US, and it's going to obviously vary shipping rates based on country, based on where you're from, but I just don't think it makes sense. I think you'll be able to buy this in the secondary market cheaper later. Their games, like I said, generally just don't hold their value very well. Now, you aren't talking about a huge savings. You're talking about if you buy this on the secondary market for $20 or $15, once you factor in shipping, because nobody else has any cheaper shipping rates, you're going to be paying $12, $13 anyways. So you're talking about getting it for $30 on the cheap end, $33, $34 maybe. Maybe you're saving $10 to get a used copy down the road. Is that worth it to you? I don't know. For me, I don't really care. I'm happy to wait. I'm not interested in the IP, to be clear, so I'm not getting it either way. But yeah, it very much depends on who you are, what your priorities are. Do you want to support the creator? Do you want to get it faster? Do you not want to buy a used copy? Buy it on Kickstarter then. Versus in terms of holding the value, you're not going to get your money back if you don't like this game. This is a game you'll be selling it at a loss because that's the market of Cryptosaic Games. If you don't like this game and you're passing on it, you're going to spend $43 and get back $20. Just giving you a heads up. Just make that decision accordingly however you want. From there, we have Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria, which is an update in Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria, and that update is they hit $60,000 pledged, and they put out a nice little update, which I thought was great, which instead of putting out 2 bonuses, if you watched my previous video on it, to condense my thoughts in my previous video very quickly, again, I'll link up above, down below, but to condense my thoughts very quickly, I really enjoyed the game. I am happy to own this game. I am backing this game, but because of the cost, the value proposition in terms of how much you have to get it retail versus how much you can get it now, I just don't think it makes that much sense unless you already are a pretty hardcore Valeria universe fan. If you generally like Valeria games and you're generally happy with them, go ahead and back this because you'll be getting extras that you'll otherwise have to chase down. But in terms of just waiting till retail, if you're patient, this is not something you need to jump in on now. That being said, they just announced that they are adding 2 more modules. Once they hit 60,000, they added 2 more modules, an Ancient Spells module with 28 cards, and some more Wraith dice, these are just more options, more reason to back the Kickstarter. Is it a smash hit, total value back? No, it's still not. But if you were on the fence before, this should tip you over. These are another 2, modules that will be another $5, another $5. They basically added $10 or so of value to backing this Kickstarter that wasn't there before. And given the price point, that's decent. I'm pretty excited about these. I'm happy. It makes me feel a little better about backing. And if you were interested in this game, if it looked interesting to you, if you're a fan of either Valeria Card Kingdoms or Stanislav Kordensky, Stanislav, I really apologize for butchering your name whenever it comes up. I really apologize, but if you're a fan of Stan Kordinsky's games, or if you're a fan of Valeria Card Kingdoms, they just gave you 2 more reasons to jump on in. Again, to be clear, not the most amazing back ever, but it is that much better than it was last time, which is why I chose to update you. Dead Reckoning. Wow, I put out a lot of content on Dead Reckoning. Honestly, it's a combination of 2 things, and this is going to be true across the board whenever I do coverage of Kickstarters, which is my own personal interest. Somebody asked me in the comments at one point, what makes you cover a Kickstarter with a dedicated video versus in a roundup? And I thought it was a great question, and the answer pretty much comes down to three things. The first is how well the Kickstarter is doing. That's the first. If the better a Kickstarter is doing, the more backers it has, the more eyeballs it has, and that means the more likely that video is to get views. And at the end of the day, views matter both for the video itself, both for the time I put into it, and also for the YouTube algorithm. If I put out a video that gets half my views, I get dinged in the algorithm. YouTube's like, oh, the content's not as good. You have to put out videos, unfortunately, that get eyeballs, and that does mean that putting out a dedicated video on some game that has 100 backers nobody cares about, is not good for the channel, unfortunately. It's not good for me. It's a personal, selfish decision. The second is my own personal interest level. If the more interested I am in a game, and this is a good example, like Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria is a great example. That's not one that's large enough to usually get its own dedicated video, but I did one because I personally like the universe. So if I'm a fan of the universe, then sometimes I'll say, screw it, I'm going to cover it, even though it's a little worse in the views, and it did do a little worse in the views in terms of my numbers, but I was interested in the video, and so I wanted to jump in on it. And the third is how relevant it is to my audience. And the reason I bring that one up is Escape the Night is a Kickstarter that a few people have asked about, that I will be covering in a coming Kickstarter at some point soon, is in coming roundup, but I'm not giving it a dedicated video because even though it has higher numbers and higher eyeballs, it's not a typical gamer's game, and so I want it to be relevant to the audience. So again, those are the three things: how well the Kickstarter is doing in terms of general success, relevance to the audience, and my own personal interest in the Kickstarter. That's what chooses whether a game gets a roundup video versus a dedicated video. And in the case of Dead Reckoning, it has now gotten mentioned in like 2 roundups, 2 dedicated videos. I just did a review on it yesterday, as well as a blog post from BoardGameCo. So I like this game. I make no apologies for the fact that I like this game. I played it. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to get my copy. With that said, why are we talking about it now? Sorry about that tangent. With that said, the reason we're talking about it now is just to give you more updates, which is, unfortunately, this one's actually, after my whole big thing about how much I like the game and how successful it is, this one's more of a slight negative thing plus an update, which is, the update is that they announced yesterday that they are putting in, let's find this over here, they announced that they're putting in, because of it doing so well, they're putting in upgraded ship models. It looks cool. I played with the other ones. This looks better. Obviously, we have to see the actual ship model. It's going to be colored, but this does look like a nice improvement. I'm happy with this, and I'm happy they're adding more. But unfortunately, my next update is not nearly as positive, which is, let's go to next update. In the next update, they announced that they're adding in $30 for $15, not 30, $15 for 30 barrels and 10 crates. They're adding basically upgraded cargo for the game, which is nice, but the problem is, and AEG, I hope you're paying attention to this, because, I mean, as much as I've been going on and on about my own personal love of the game and why I'm backing it, I hope you're paying attention to this, because this is something I did talk about in my review, which I put up yesterday, where despite the fact that I like it, and I went through all the pros and cons, whatever, but I ultimately like the game, I ultimately want the game, but it really isn't the value that I thought it was going to be, and we're down to, what is it now, 4 days left by the time you're watching this? That's not great, and that's because overall, they put out day 1 on their little chart over here of all the things that's going to happen. Day 1, you had a full expansion added, a bunch of Sea Dogs, awesome, great. Day 1, it looked good. Then they had a Ghost Ship too. You had a Ghost Ship Cube Tower. And then from there, the daily updates have been things like videos, which aren't really content for your game, they're just content for the Kickstarter page, and then a few things here and there, like, you know, another tile, another few cards, and I had a bunch of few cards, and sometimes we have add-ons are sometimes the daily update. So, hey guys, today's daily update is you can buy something. Overall, the value in this Kickstarter, while I am happy with everything they put into it because I liked it enough that I'm getting it either way, because it's not going to be available in retail. So, but at the same time, it's fairly expensive for the game you're getting. And again, I touched upon this in my review. It is fairly expensive for the game you're getting. They are basically at this point coasting on the amount of people, myself included, who seem to like the game. They're coasting on the previous success of both AEG itself as a company and John Clare's various card crafting games that have done well. Now, don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, a game has multiple value points, and one of those value points is, do you want it, or do I want it enough to pay for it? Another one is the secondary market, or in general, what will the market decide this is worth? And I think in both cases, they're going to get away with, I say get away with it, but I don't mean it negative. I mean, I guess I mean it a little negatively. They're going to get away with this because if it doesn't go to retail, then the hype for the game means they can get away with charging what they want to an extent. And if the game is good, which having played it, I believe it is, then it will continue to hold its value. That being said, when compared to other Kickstarters or even their own past Kickstarters, it's not delivering the amount I would want. Now, this is a weird space to be in because I'm simultaneously saying it's going to hold its value, but it's not worth what it's worth, which is contradictory statements. At the end of the day, if I'm paying for it and if other people are paying for it, then it's worth what it's worth. And the secondary market will be its own decision down the road. But it's tricky. I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit frustrated, might be the right word, with the direction of the campaign. I'm really hoping that in the next 4 days they have Saga 2 is added to the Legendary Pledge for free, as opposed to as an optional add-on. I really hope. I mean, I think I'm going to be let down, unfortunately, but I really hope. Ultimately, I like this game. I'm excited for the success of the game, and I'm going to like the game either way. But it's a bit disappointing because the bigger the price point you put on it, the more you're going to lock out others from accessing this game. Now, they are a publisher. Their job is to pay the bills, to pay salaries, and to make money. Their job is not to, give away things for free. But if they can make it work, it would be great. I mean, it's a hard thing to wrestle. I guess I'm just having my own little personal demons of the conflicting aspect of give more value to the consumer versus do what's best for the business. I'm having those things conflicting in my head, which is not a pleasant place to be if you're me, because I really like to be smack dab in the middle, and this one I guess technically I'm smack dab in the middle because I can't make up my mind. Either way, Dead Reckoning, great game, not as great a value as I would have liked, but probably still worth what you're backing because I think it's going to hold its value. That was something else, guys. Trench Club. Trench Club is a fun one. Trench Club, I don't know why I'm saying it's a fun one. Trench Club is a game that's $50,000, $23,000 goal, 453 backers, 10 days to go, doing pretty decently, all things considered. Will it hold its value? I don't think so. It's a tough one to say because it falls into that category of a small enough customer base that if the game is good, and it seems to be good for the target audience, I'm not saying good for me, it seems to be good for the target audience. This is technically a reprint of a game they already had called, I think, Trench Foot, I believe it was called. So this is a reprint, polished up, improved upon version of a previous game that seemed to have a decent audience to some degree. And so this is going to be a little hard to get your hands on after, depending on how many people are selling it down the road. That being said, I still don't think it's going to hold its value that much. The price point's just a little too high. It is going to be hard to track one down later. If you are on the fence and you don't want to wait for the next, when it's available on BoardGameGeek Marketplace, when someone's selling the copy, whatever, then sure, go ahead and back it now. Is this one where you're likely to get your money back if you're selling it? It's a little hard to say. Again, you have the situation sometimes with smaller Kickstarters where the smaller a Kickstarter is, if there's not enough of an audience, and if that audience tends to be passionate about the product, then very few copies make their way onto the secondhand market. So it's in that weird space here. In terms of the price point, at $75 for, where is it? Not $75. The base pledge comes in at $58 plus shipping, and they slowly escalate it. I will say, one of the things they did on this campaign they said it's like Axes and Alloys meets Memoir 44. It has elements of war game. It looks intriguing. Not intriguing enough to me, but it looks intriguing. Some aspects of it don't really look polished. It looks like it's been built on a 3D print prototype, and they kind of stuck with that with the final design, which is a little bit weird and a little bit not polished. The actual game board looks great. The art, the maps look fine. One thing I loved when they did on the campaign pages is over here, bear with me, over here. They have the pledge level shown over here. Then on the next one down, they show grayed out plus what you're getting at this pledge level. So you're getting these extra troops, these extra dice. And then the next pledge level, you have all that plus these extra things. And these are customized units, by the way. If you are interested in this game, I do recommend looking into the customized units. I'm not interested in the game, and the customized units made me interested in the game. So they do all these weird things, like suddenly this whole thing that you've been playing with until now, suddenly there's a mine layer that can lay mines in the battlefield that you know where they are and your opponents don't. Suddenly there's I can't remember, they have everything. They have a gas, poisonous gas is being spread across the battlefield, hurting good and bad alike. These customized models, that actually intrigued me far more than the base game itself. Not enough to back it, but it looks interesting. It looks like an interesting game. It looks like it looks like the Memoir 44 Axes and Alloys person is the target audience here. But like I said, it's a little bit unpolished in terms of the models. Functional, but at the cost of the visual appeal of it. I don't know how it'll play out in real life, but it's, again, overall interesting, overall okay. I don't think it's a great price point for what you're getting, but it will also be hard to get later. So it falls into that weird gray zone. Next up, we have Dollars to Donuts. Dollars to Donuts is $23,000 out of a $20,000 goal, which I don't know why that is. I mean, this game looks like it would have more of a backing. It definitely got, hype from all the channels that typically hype it. Rado put out a great video on it. Man vs. Meeple, actually, I'm not sure if they did, but I know Tantrum has put out a good video on it. Overall, this is one that's coming in at $29 for the base game of it and $39 for the upgraded deluxe version. But it's only bringing in that much because the retail price supposedly will be $39.95. It wasn't clear whether that's going to be the price or the MSRP. If it's the MSRP, and I think it's going to be the MSRP, by the way. Just looking at the game, I think it would be MSRP. In which case, it's a terrible price point. Paying $29 plus $13 shipping, I believe it was. You're paying more than the MSRP. If it's the MSRP, I want to be clear. I wasn't sure if it was or wasn't. But you're basically paying more than the price, either way. So you're paying more than the price to get it early. In terms of the deluxe upgrade, in terms of if you want the base game plus the PVC playmats plus the 3 mini expansions, that's the way to go. But I have a hard time thinking this is worth it for what it's delivering. Again, Rado gave it a standard, he loved it, which is great, happy for him, but I don't know. So one thing I'll say about this game on a personal note, I guess. First of all, I'm interested in this. I am interested in it for myself, for my daughter. I think it'd be a great game. I think it'd be a light, fun, tile-layer game, and I like these kinds of games. What I hated about the game is what Rado and Tantrum House seem to like, which is the fact that these tiles can lay off the player board, which is like, oh, it's so freeing. It's not like your typical polyomino game where like Barren Park or Isle of Cats or whatever, where you have to make it all fit. I'm like, no, that's not the point. There's order in this world. There's this OCD, and you have to make them all fit. That's the whole point of these things. You can't just overlay things. What kind of madness is this? So either way, that's my own personal opinion. My own personal opinion is the thing they thought was freeing, I think, is madness and insanity. That being said, I am interested in the game. I am not interested in the game at the price point. I do not think it's a good back. If you are going to back it, back at the deluxe upgrade. But even then, I just don't think it's a good. I don't think it's a good back. That is what it is. From there, we have Roll Camera, the filmmaking board game. Roll Camera this is one of the harder ones to cover, and that is because this is not going to retail. This has gotten generally positive opinions from everyone involved, and it looks like a good game. It does. But it's not going to retail, and the price point's bad. So that all adds up to a package of you might have to back it now if you want to be sure to get it, because what's the aftermarket going to look like? Now, I will note, this is the second game from this publisher, from I don't know his name, Malachi Ray Rempin. This is his second game, and his last one was picked up for retail distribution eventually. This one may or may not. It's up in the air. He's not seeking it out, but he's basically, hey, if people come to me, then we'll talk. So that makes it a very tough one in terms of it may be available for retail later. The price point, this is a cooperative dice placement game, which is already appealing. The artwork's appealing, suitable enough for a game which is about the film industry. The video was incredibly well done. Watch the video on the Kickstarter page. Great job. I'm happy for them. The campaign's doing well. $72,000 out of $14,000. 1,500 backers. Overall, they're knocking it out of the park on multiple levels. But the price point is just hard. The price point for this game is $49 for the standard game pledge. $49, which is, it's hard. That's a lot of money for this game. It's a lot of money to get the game, and it's not, the price point of what you're getting is not standard for that price point. This should be if you're buying this on Miniature Market or whatever, this would be $27, $33, $35, depends when you're getting on sale, not on sale. You're paying much more plus shipping to get this game. So this falls strongly, for me, this falls strongly in the category of, if I wouldn't buy this on the shelf, I'm not buying it on Kickstarter. And I am very interested in this game, don't get me wrong, a cooperative dice placement game that looks very appealing and gives you different elements to consider, and, making a movie so good that it's good, or making a movie so bad that it's actually worth just as many points. Lots of things in this game look very interesting to me, but I wouldn't buy this on the shelf. And then my second question is, do I think I can get it cheaper later? And I think I can. There's not a guarantee, though, which means you're going to have to make that decision for yourself. Because at $50 plus shipping, the question is, what is this going to be on the secondhand market? Will it hit the secondhand market? Some people, from this 1,400 people, how many days we got left? We have 14 days left, 1,500 backers. That might hit 2,200 backers by the time this is done. A certain portion of those people will not like it, and they will sell it. And that means someone else can buy it, and the question is, at what price point are you buying that secondhand copy? But it's not currently going to retail, although it might go to retail. So ultimately, this one falls in the category of, I think it's a bad back. I don't think it's worth the price point. I think you're being asked to give up a lot more to get a game with degrees of FOMO wrapped inside. At the same time, it might end up being the best price point if you can't get your hands on a copy in the secondhand market, or if you don't like buying used games. So overall, I don't think it's a good back in that context. And in terms of yourself, if you are selling this game, good luck getting $50 for it. Maybe I'm wrong. If it's amazing, if it blows people out of the park, then I could be wrong about it. But I don't think you'll be able to get your money back on this. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Overall, I don't think it's a good buy, but I think that if you're really super interested in it and you don't want to deal with FOMO or the secondhand market or whatever, then go ahead and back it. And last thing I'll note, which is interesting to me, just my own personal opinion, they have this $100,000 stretch goal for, it's $100,000 or $2,000 at 49, which is basically 98,000 versus 100,000, just for the record. I don't know why they did that. Maybe 100,000 just sounds better, I don't know. But either way, if they get to that point, which they're at 70,000 right now, they will upgrade to the Clapper box, which they have a video on, and I just think it would be super annoying for a board game. I would be less interested in this game and backing it if they hit that number. Because I think it's a cool little gimmick, but how are you dealing... it seems like a less ideal box for the expense of a cute little shtick. That's basically it. Overall, looks great though. It does look like a great game. Lots of content out there in terms of looking at it. Router, there's some videos. I think Tantrum House, Man vs. Meeple. I think I'm just kind of listing the names, but I recall seeing those names. In terms of shipping is subsidized. $8 shipping. I don't know if I said 13. I may have said 13 by mistake, but it's $50 plus 8 or plus whatever zone you are in. Again, overall, I don't think it's a good back, but it's not going to retail, so factor that into your decision. And lastly, and I decided not to do a tease like I did last week, I am not covering Northgard right now, but Northgard, I will have a video up this week. Hopefully I will have a video up tomorrow on this, but we will see how my schedule actually goes. But hopefully this one will be going up Tuesday morning, and because I don't want to tease people too often, I did not put this in the cards or in the picture or the title at all. But I am interested in Northgard, it's doing pretty well, and I do want to talk about it. So, hopefully we will resume that conversation shortly. Until next time, I am Alex from BoardGameCo. As usual, this is my Kickstarter Roundup. I do this once a week, every Monday, where I try to cover both updates and new Kickstarters. If you like this stuff, subscribe down below. Tell me what you're backing. Tell me which things you're backing right now. We finally hit a bit of a lull, which is about to be crashed out the window come August 4th. We're going to have a whole bunch of new stuff, including Massive Darkness 2, which I am super excited about. I don't think will be the next Kickstarter Roundup will not be covering that, but rest assured Massive Darkness 2 will be getting its own video, and of course, a whole bunch of other stuff coming as well that we will be happy to cover. Until next time, I am Alex from BoardGameCo. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below what you like, what you don't like, what I can do differently in the channel in general. I'm always happy to hear your opinions. I'm always happy to have a conversation, and I am done for now. Have a good one.